Thank you for joining us in Finding God in the world of video games. And tracking down a PlayStation 5 or an Xbox Series S or X has become the holy grail of video games. They're almost mythical in their existence at this point. If I had one right now, it would be getting displayed right here instead of these toys, but we don't have some. You're welcome to donate.
We'll gladly accept.
But when we think about video games, we prefer to think of the fun part. Larger-than-life characters, amazing narratives that pull us into events of global impact, maybe even universal impact, and addictive gameplay that keeps us coming back for more. And as the hardware launches of the PS5 and the Xbox Series S and X drew closer last year, fans of each upcoming system eagerly awaited the enhanced power, improved graphics, and new games that were finally on their way.
Is this all going to be about how, we haven't gotten either one yet?
No. But yes, it will. Even the global production and shipping challenges of 2020 did nothing to dampen the enthusiasm of those new console releases. And with more people spending even more time indoors last year, the demand for PC and console gaming reached a crescendo. A crescendo that quickly became an outcry of pain, frustration, and disappointment. And the reason was something incredibly small, something that had been taken for granted in not only gaming, but all of our sources of technology. A global semiconductor shortage that threatens not only our ability to enjoy video games for the foreseeable future, but a plethora of other devices as well.
The funny thing is that this event is sort of the perfect storm. These little tiny chips power everything from our gaming systems to laptops to smartphones to smart cars. Almost all the technologies that have grown in demand over the last several years are placing massive demands on the very small group of manufacturers who are creating these semiconductors.
Yeah. As the world of video games prepared to make its leap forward into the next generation, the current consoles, PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, they wound down their production, which in turn caused all the game developers to start creating games for the next generation platforms that are now in scarce supply. We have already made the leap forward into the next generation, but the door is too narrow for most of us to actually pass through to the other side.
Just a few weeks ago, or more like by the time this is going, maybe a few months ago.
Maybe this will all be fixed by then.
Nintendo stated that the semiconductor shortage is going to impact production of their existing Nintendo Switch hardware, making the potential of the unannounced but highly anticipated Switch Pro even more difficult to produce.
So, let's summarize. The previous consoles are no longer in production. The current generation of consoles are trapped between a rock and a hard place, and game developers have already shifted into making games for devices that are in exceptionally limited supply. Semiconductor chips are in high demand from industries that have more critical need of them than video game consoles. And okay, hold on. Let me just take a deep breath. Deep breath. Serenity now. Serenity now. Serenity now.
Are you back with us? Do you need your blood pressure medication?
I might, but I think I can make it through to the end of this video.
I would hope so. It's getting late.
It is getting late. Considering the challenges of the world around us at this time, the needs of a very specific chip to enable us to enjoy our video game pastime seems to be a small complaint compared to the battles that are going on in all the lives around us each and every day. But the reason we play games is to make those frustrations and challenges of our real world at least a little more palatable, to bring us joy when times are tough, to connect us with others virtually when we can't see them or be near them physically, and honestly, to experience adventures that are difficult or impossible any other way. Our real world problems have now found a way to impact our virtual worlds in a way that just seems to compound the challenges we were already facing. It seems to be insult to injury, honestly.
It really does. In a stunning twist of fate, during this time period in which people are spending more time indoors, working from home, and connecting with others through their smartphones, the critical component to all those pursuits has almost completely dried up.
The one thing we thought we could turn to for a little peace amidst all of this chaos has found a way to become snake-bit by forces very few predicted, and those who had foreseen this exact predicament were unfortunately ignored until it was far too late.
The truth is that many of us face identical challenges in our everyday lives in a very similar fashion, and we don't even realize it. We, like many companies in the semiconductor shortage, are trying to pull our strength from sources of limited supply. Whether it is our coffee in the morning, the support of friends and loved ones throughout our day.
Or, we're scrolling on our phones during our downtime, just looking for a meme to make us laugh. Our enjoyment of television and video games to make a long day just a little less dreary. All of these sources are finite. They eventually reach their maximum output. The coffee pot eventually runs empty.
No!
Nobody is answering our calls or texts because they finally got to sleep. All of the memes are ones you have already seen before, or you've already watched this episode of Chopped twice. And in a similar twist of fate, these things that previously made life easier can suddenly begin to drain us of our limited remaining energy.
The text messages on our phone are full of bad news about loved ones who are currently sick. Scrolling through social media stresses us out as we see the worst parts of humanity being exposed. The television is full of tragedies and heartbreaking losses that only add to our burden. And when we finally hit the pillow at the end of the night, our restless thoughts take even this brief moment of peace away from us.
Exponentially compounded problems is not a new concept. As a matter of fact, Christ explained this exact predicament in Matthew 12. Verses 43 through 45, he's explaining to his disciples. He says, when an unclean spirit goes out of a man, he goes through dry places seeking rest and finds none. He says, I will return to my house from which I came. When he comes, he finds it empty, swept, and put in order. So then he goes and takes with him 7 other spirits more wicked than himself, and they enter and they dwell there. And the last state of that man is worse than the first. In our world today, depression is on the rise. Anxiety is at an all-time high. And if most of us are being honest with ourselves, we are rapidly approaching the boiling point on our stress almost every single day. The truth that Christ was explaining through that example is that when we are at our most empty place, the place where we think we have it together, but we are one knock on the door or one phone call away from being overcome, that enemy does not come back alone. He brings 7 times the stress, 7 times the problem, 7 times the anxiety, 7 times the pain. When we are at our weakest point, the enemy does not play fair. He completely stacks the deck when we are in the worst possible position to absorb another hit.
Regardless of our status as a believer or non-believer in Christ, the rain is going to fall. Check out Matthew 5:45. And the enemy is going to attack. Check out Matthew 7:24 through 27. We are guaranteed to have problems in this world. Our enemy has a very simple goal: to steal, kill, and destroy.
If you feel like your joy is being stolen, your dreams are being killed, and your peace is being destroyed, you are not alone. And you are not necessarily doing anything wrong to deserve these battles. You are simply under attack from an enemy that is literally hell-bent on your destruction. We cannot prevent the attack, but we can ensure that the enemy doesn't have an empty vessel to return to. And if the enemy brings 7 more adversaries with them to press the attack, we must have someone on our side more powerful to endure and repel his attack. You see in Matthew 11:28 through 30, Jesus says, "Come to me, all you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you. Learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy, and my burden is light." Regardless of a global pandemic, a shipping crisis, or all of the other factors that have went into this semiconductor shortage, it was inevitable. The question is what are we going to do to endure this moment in time and not only survive it, but rise above it?
And in our real world situations, as the floodgates open to make an already challenging situation worse, we have one and only one choice to make. And it is a choice that we must make daily.
Even Christ didn't run off the devil after repelling one of his attacks. Jesus himself had to face that boss fight in 3 different modes before Satan finally took flight. And that story's in Matthew chapter 4, verses 1 through 11. Talk about exponentially increasing difficulty.
So don't be surprised if the problems get worse, the challenge grows, and the enemy doubles down on the pressure. And don't lose heart and let the enemy steal your peace and joy through the storm you are enduring. There is a place of rest for us, and it is not in a cup of coffee, a Netflix binge, or even in a video game level.
Those are temporary diversions at best. And we will realize as soon as the cup is empty, or as soon as that screen goes to the credits, that our house is still empty, and that enemy is still knocking at the door. And while he was waiting, he invited some friends. Now, there remains one path to having peace through the storm, and it is filling our hearts, minds, and souls with Jesus. Take a moment today to stop, to breathe, and to accept that these challenges are out of your ability to influence or control. You cannot stop the rainwaters and the flood from hitting the house, but you can choose the foundation the house is built on, as well as who you have chosen to be locked inside with.
Your enemy may be coming at you with 7 times the nightmares you feel you are prepared to take on, but we serve a master who can drop them all to their knees at the mention of his name.